Hi, welcome to section 1.4, multiplying with integers. If you remember yesterday or a couple of days ago, we did an activity where we were making a chart and we are trying to figure out what happened if you multiplied two integers that had the same sign or if you multiplied integers that had the different sign. And we discovered that the product of two integers with the same sign is positive. So let's put a couple of examples down here. So 2 times 3 is equal to 6. Negative 2 times negative 3 is also equal to 6. We found that out yesterday. So if I change the color of this, if you notice here, this integer and this integer are both positive and they have the same sign. They have the same sign. You end up with a positive product. In this case, the signs are the same, but they are negative. So they have the same sign. And even though they both have a negative sign, the product is positive. So if you multiply two positive numbers, you get a positive number as the product. If you multiply a negative times a negative, you also get a positive product. Okay, let's see what happens when you multiply integers with different signs. So the product of two integers with different signs is negative. And we looked at this yesterday. So if I go back to here and say negative, well, let's change this to black. And I say negative 2 times a positive 3 is equal to a negative 6. We also discovered that if we multiplied 3 times a negative 2, we ended up with a negative 6. In this case, we were saying there was three groups. No, in this case, we're saying there's three groups of negative 2. And since multiplication is commutative, you can change this around. So you can think of it as three groups of negative 2's. So again, if we note that the signs in this case are different. First one is negative and the second one is positive. So we have different signs. And we end up with a negative product. And it's the same with this. We have a positive here, and we have a negative integer here. So we have different signs. And we have a negative product. So a negative times a positive is a negative, and a positive times a negative is also a negative. Okay, let's try some examples on your own. So let's delete this. And let's turn this back to black because red is rather shocking. So why don't you try, I have to turn the page so I can find them. On your own, why don't you find the product of 5 times 5 is equal to, and negative 1 times a negative 9, and a 12 times a negative 2 is equal to, and let's also try 4 times 11, and negative 7 times a negative 8, and a negative 6 times a 4. So pause me for a couple of minutes, try these on your own, and let's find out what the answer is. Okay, welcome back. A positive 5 times a positive 5 is 25. This is still the same as you remember it. A negative 1 times a negative 9 is 9. Positive, a negative times a negative is positive. 12 times negative 2 is negative 24, because a negative times a positive is negative. 4 times 11 is 44. That hasn't changed. And negative 7 times 8. Interesting. My phone died. Negative 7 times negative 8 is a positive 56. And negative 6 times 4 is a negative 24. Let's try one more. And a negative 7 times a negative 5 times a negative 2. Okay, we're going to think of this in two separate steps. We're going to take 7 times 5, and we're going to end up with 35, because a negative times a negative is positive. And then we bring this back down again, times negative 2, and we end up with negative 70. Well, that's how you multiply integers.